Well, I think today is the moment, at least for me, where transparency turns from an issue into a movement. Our goal was to get people in the same space that are interested in transparency as an issue. And I think when you find people know each other and they collaborate with each other, all of a sudden movements start happening. And this is sort of the kickoff. I think that's what's happening here today. And it's really exciting. So we've got a lot of great panels there behind me there, where people from government are talking, people from consulting firms are talking, open source technologists and evangelists are talking, and just citizens are talking, journalists, whomever, and we're collaborating about how to make our government more open and more transparent. It's really exciting. The way that we've taken Sunlight Labs, I was signing up to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, and I was like, God, I really don't want to do this. I mean, I love Habitat for Humanity, but this isn't how I feel like I can contribute best to society. I don't know anything about carpentry and there's not really a Habitat for Humanity for people whose primary skill is development, right? Sunlight Labs wants to be the Habitat for Humanity for developers, right? So if you want to contribute to society, if you want to contribute to change, Sunlight Labs is where you can do it. And we're trying to build that infrastructure that will allow people to say, hey, you know what? I want to give back. I know Python. How do I do it? Sunlight Labs has an opportunity for you. You can go to a state, pick your home state, and develop a parser to put all of your state's legislation, every vote, every legislator, every piece of legislation in a relational database that's open and freely available for people to use and mash up and do what they want. Because let's not wait on government to do all the work. The geeks shall inherit the earth, right? I think transparency is important because it destroys apathy. It's the biggest antidote for apathy. So when you have someone say, I don't vote because the government doesn't really listen to me, the government doesn't really care, they're all sold out, or my voice doesn't count. When you make it so that people can participate in their government and watch their government and be the guardians of our democracy, that neutralizes apathy. So that's why I'm interested in transparency. I also am interested in transparency because you can't. It's good. It's not a partisan thing. It's not. I was a progressive. I was involved in the progressive movement before getting into the SunlightFoundation, and I would go home and have arguments with my Uncle Warren at Thanksgiving about whether or not such and such policy was good or such and such policy was bad. But transparency is sort of the first problem, right? We have to make an open and transparent, fair and transparent government before we can even have, I think, debates of whether or not universal health care is good, or whether or not we should have a stimulus package, or whether or not we should, how we should spend our tax dollars. Tax dollars is a particularly good example. So the one thing that Americans spend money on every year and don't get a receipt for is their taxes. So how can we have an educated tax debate in this country if the government doesn't tell us what our tax dollars are going to? We can't. So you can't say whether or not we should raise taxes or spend more money or less money on health care when we don't know how much money of our hard-earned tax dollars are going to health care or the war in Iraq or whatever, if it's not in front of people and it's not there. So transparency is, again, a way to kill apathy so that people can have those educated decisions, or can have those educated discussions and make those educated decisions. So a few hours ago, this board was completely empty. And we kicked it off by saying, this is your conference. And that's really what's happening here. This isn't about the SunlightFoundation. This is about about igniting the transparency movement. But we said, this is your conference. Come fill out this board. I stood up here with cards that people filled out and then basically served as a pseudo-moderator, making sure that that people would combine stuff and that we didn't have the same event all day, but very loose. And then it got filled out, and we've got panels that range from policy barriers to government to public social software sites, right? That's being done by someone who works for the government at the Department of Defense, who's basically like, this is the reason why I can't do what you want me to do is because of this act of 1979 and this act of 2003. How can we do it by and jump over these hurdles, or do we have to get rid of these laws and regulations? And we have another one with the FEC. I'm doing a panel with the FEC where the FEC wants to know how they can provide more of their precious and valuable data to the American people. What the FEC does is they monitor elections and monitor contributions to political candidates. So they want to know, how can we better put that data out online, and they really want to listen to people. And then we're having a hackathon from 2 to 5 today. We're going to get in a room with developers, and we're just going to code, and we're going to write code that we're going to do the Habitat for Humanity thing for developers. We're going to write code to make our governments more transparent, probably do the 50-state thing, probably invent some stuff and see what happens. It's our first sort of pilot project for this, so we'll see how it goes. And then tomorrow we're going to do the same thing all over again. We're going to have more of a, we're going to put up another board, and people are going to fill it out. It's really exciting to see that just mix of you've got journalists, policy wonks, technologists, and people from the government all here to listen. It's the perfect combination of people.